Three words have caused more arguments at Australian dinner tables than almost anything else in money. Everyone's heard them. Half the country blames them for house prices. The other half says they're how ordinary people get ahead, and almost nobody can actually explain them. Negative gearing. Here's the thing. The government just rewrote the rules on it for the first time in decades. So let's finally sort out what it actually is. For years, it's been the most argued about idea in Australian money, blamed for locking young people out of housing, defended as the engine of the great Aussie dream. In May, in the budget, it got changed. But to understand what changed, you first have to understand what it actually is. And honestly, it's far simpler than the shouting makes it sound. So let's follow one bloke through the whole thing. Call him Dave. Start dead simple. Gearing just means borrowing money to invest. Dave takes out a loan and buys an investment property to rent out. Now, if the rent he collects is more than the cost of owning it, he's making a profit. That's positive gearing, and he pays tax on that profit. But the costs add up fast. The interest on the loan, council rates, repairs, a property manager. And if all those costs come to more than the rent, Dave's making a loss. That right there is negative gearing. He's running his investment at a loss on purpose, which sounds completely mad until you see why. Here's why Dave does it deliberately. Under the rules as they've stood, that loss doesn't just disappear. Dave gets to subtract it from his other income, his salary. So if his property runs at a $10,000 loss for the year, he knocks 10 grand straight off his taxable income. And at his tax rate, that hands him back a few $1,000s at tax time. The taxman effectively shares the loss with him. So a loss that looks brutal on paper costs Dave a lot less in real life. But the refund was never really the point. It's just the cushion. The real bet is the property's value going up. Dave's wagering that over the years, the price climbs by far more than his yearly losses ever cost him. And when he finally sells, there's been a sweetener built into the system, a capital gains discount. Hold an asset longer than a year and only half the gain gets taxed. So Dave deducts his losses at his full tax rate the whole way along, but only pays tax on half his profit at the end. Full deductions now, a discounted gain later. That gap is the engine that's driven Australian property investment for 40 years. And that engine is exactly what the government just rebuilt. On budget night, May 2026, the Treasurer announced the biggest shake-up to negative gearing in decades. From the 1st of July 2027, for established homes bought after that budget night, the headline move, using a rental loss to cut the tax on your wages, goes away. That loss can now only be used against rental income or a future property gain, not your salary. And that 50% capital gains discount, it's being replaced too. The cushion just got a whole lot thinner. Now, before anyone panics or pops the champagne, the detail is everything here. If you already own an investment property, you're grandfathered. The old rules still apply to you untouched. Brand new builds are carved out completely. Negative gearing and the old discount stay on them, specifically to keep people building new housing. And all of this is about residential property, not shares, not commercial. So it's not some blanket abolition, it's more of a redirect, nudging investors away from bidding on existing houses and toward building new ones. So why touch something that stood for 40 years? This is where the country splits clean down the middle. One side argues negative gearing pumped up house prices and handed the biggest tax breaks to the people who already owned the most, and that pushing investors toward new builds will add supply and give first home buyers a fighting chance. The other side argues the real problem was never the tax rules at all. It's that Australia simply hasn't built enough homes, and that fiddling with investment settings just rattles the market without fixing the actual shortage. Both sides have a genuine point. We're not here to tell you who's right, just to show you what the machine does. So where does that leave a normal person? 3 things to hold on to. 1, if you hear someone shout, negative gearing's gone, that's not quite right. It's changed for established homes bought from budget night on with big exemptions around it. 2, none of this is sudden. The main changes don't even start until July 2027. And if you already own, you're protected. And 3, because this is genuinely complicated and the law is still being finalized, if it actually touches a decision you're about to make, this is exactly the moment to sit down with a registered tax agent, not take advice from a bloke at a barbecue. So next time negative gearing comes up at the pub, and after this budget, trust me, it will, you'll actually know what it is, why it ever existed, and what just changed. You'll know it was always a bet on rising prices with a tax cushion underneath, never free money, and that for established homes, that cushion just got a lot thinner. Quick, honest line, because it matters. This is general information about how the system works and what's been announced. It's not tax or investment advice. The rules are still being locked in, and for your own situation, a registered tax agent is who you want. But the 3 most argued about words in Australian money, you can hold your own on them now. This whole channel is just this, pulling the Australian money system apart, one argued about thing at a time. Plain English, nothing to sell you. Next one, franking credits. The other uniquely Australian tax quirk that turns up at every single election and that almost nobody outside an accountant's office can actually explain. If you want that, subscribe and do someone a favor. Send this to the person in your life who keeps bringing up negative gearing without quite knowing what it means. See you in the next one.